Welcome back to the Night Shift, your safe space for talking about UFOs, UAPs, NHI, disclosure, psionics, and everything else your friends, family, and coworkers are so sick and tired of hearing you go on and on and on about. Listen, the next time you're met with a 1,000-yard stare or a blank expression, don't get mad. Just stand up, turn around, and walk away, because you don't need those people. You don't need anybody. You just need us. So welcome back, Team Night Shift, Friday. Had a great show for you today. Very excited to be back with you. We have a huge announcement, which I'll just get out of the way right now. If you haven't already heard, Richard Dolan is going to be joining us next Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And we're going to be chatting with him about his new book on USOs, and we're going to catch up with him on the current situation in ufology. The conversation shift from nuts and bolts, legal challenges, to the legacy program from Congress, to psionics and this whole other thing that's going on now. We're going to get Richard's perspective on all that, so I'm super excited. And yeah, if you didn't already know, that's the news. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Haley Gillard is here. Zoltan's here. Cosmic Serpent. Brian, I saw you in there. Of course, Chris Hovard, Ebony McKickass, the heart and soul of the Mod Squad. Let's see. Sage Sleuth is here. Jeffrey Wheeler. It's great to see all of you. Thank you for joining us today. We're doing something different now. This is going to be a new thing that we're going to start. It's first Fridays of every month. We're going to do a roundtable discussion where we're going to get a few different voices around the table, and we're going to talk about some of the bigger ideas in ufology. Some big topics that we can sort of recap and break apart and dig into. Tonight, we're going to talk to Dan Cleary from the Others from Another Mother podcast, which is the greatest name ever. And we've got Pavel from Psicoactivo with us as well. And we, of course, Xander. We have Xander Jones, producer, co-host extraordinaire, and the wind beneath my wings. How are you, Xander?
I'm doing good. It feels like it's been a while since we've done one of these, but I've just remembered we didn't do Friday last week, did we? We did Wednesday last week.
We did Wednesday last week. That's right.
Oh, and we have managed to reschedule Birdie, haven't we? So we'll be able to announce that at some point.
Yes, Birdie is confirmed, and she'll be back around on the, I want to say it's the 20, no, it's not the 28th. I'll have to check, and
yeah,
we'll shut that back out.
The other thing to mention about next Friday is that in certain time zones in the US, they move their clocks either backwards or forwards this Sunday, whereas in the UK, that doesn't happen for another couple of months. So not another couple of months, another couple of weeks. So if you're normally used to tuning in at 7 p.m., like right now in the UK, that will be 6 p.m. next week. And that will just be that way for a couple of weeks until we catch up. But yeah, that's it.
I don't know why we still do this with the clocks. This is ridiculous that this is still going on. So has anybody out there seen this Khloe Kardashian, Stephen Greer interview? We were talking in the green room before we went live. Pavel, have you seen it? No, Pavel's seen it. Pavel's shaking his head. Has anybody in the chat seen it yet? Hey, Pavel. There he is. There's Dan. Hey, guys. Welcome to the show.
What's going on?
The Mystery Man with the tattoos is here. Finally.
There he is. Mystery
Can we tell
solved.
that story?
Yeah. So when was it? The hearings were November 13th or something, 2024. And we did a watch party, and we were watching Mike Gold's testimony, and we saw sort of from here down of a heavily tattooed person, and we had no idea who it was. I was saying it was Corbell. It obviously wasn't Corbell, but it turns out it's our very own Dan Cleary. If I have a screenshot somewhere, here it is. There's the man.
We were like, that's some kind of special forces guy there. I don't know who that is.
Yeah.
It's a Green Beret dude.
That's funny.
So Dan was there. Dan was at the hearing, front and center as well, right behind the people doing the testimony.
What was it like to be in the room?
Oh, man. It was, first of all, I just want to say I'm so happy to be here with all of you guys. And Clint and Xander, I love this show so much. It's such a community, pull together, positive vibe. I'm really stoked to be here. So thank you very much.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks for being here.
Of course. Being there was amazing. I mean, just being in Congress, period, is just cool because of like it's such a historic place and amazing and horrible things happen there all the time. But it was really cool. It was very like overpowering. But being there for a UFO hearing was like I couldn't imagine when I was a kid getting into this when I was 8 years old. That I would ever be able to be like sitting there and seeing it firsthand. But it was incredible. Yeah, it was awesome.
Did that give you a new appreciation for everything that's going on? In other words, like sometimes it feels like it's not real, even though it's all happening. It feels like it's not real because you don't see any like immediate impact. Did that change for you at all?
Yeah, it was palpable and it was heavy in the room. Not heavy like bad, just like it felt very important. I know people tend to kind of poo-poo that hearing in a lot of ways, but when you think about what was actually covered with, you know, the Immaculate Constellation actually being put on record was huge. Lou Elizondo's comments about, you know, we have craft, we are reverse engineering them was like, it was astounding to be sitting there and hearing it. But yeah, a whole new appreciation. And it was, it felt important and it felt special to be able to be there.
Did you get to talk to anybody else cool while you were there?
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
Who'd you run into?
I went there with Jeremy Corbell and was with him from that morning all the way through the night. So it was neat being a little bit of a fly on the wall. Got to talk to Lou for a second. Met Chris Bledsoe and a couple other folks. But most of the conversations were just kind of in the little group that I was in. But it was really neat. Talked to Mike Gold. He had a woman sitting behind him who he worked with at NASA. And she was really, really interesting. And I think she has some stuff to say as well. So there were some cool folks there. It was really, really neat.
That's cool. Yeah. That's so interesting. Pavel, what's going on with you, man? We haven't caught up in a little while. How have you been?
Good, man. I went to Mexico City.
I saw that.
For a vacation with the wife, and it was really amazing. I'd never been. So I had a
What was it like?
Time. I was planning on like tasting all the food there because I pride myself in saying that the best tacos in the world are from Tijuana, and I am glad to say that they are.
Note to self: let me just jot this down.
You guys
go
should
to Tijuana for lunch.
Yeah, tacos specifically. Yeah.
I thought today, guys, would be a great opportunity to talk about recap everything that's gone on for the year to date. There's so much that's going on. It seems like from one day to the next, there's just a completely new thing happening. And I almost feel like I'm whiplash from the news and trying to figure out what's actually happening anymore. We've gone from the disclosure amendment to Jake Barber to psionics to all of these different things that have just developed over the past week. We had the drone thing in New Jersey that was going on for months. The one in the UK, that situation kind of went quiet after a while. So I thought we could pick these things apart today and sort of riff on each one, and then maybe take some questions from the audience about what they think is interesting, what they think's going on. What do you guys think? How's that sound to you?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Okay. For people who are watching, if you want to queue up in the waiting room in our Discord, you can go in there. There's a section for live call-ins. You can go into the waiting room and then hang out, and then Xander will be able to patch you in, and we'll do calls in the last half hour of the show. All right. So, Xander, you've assembled a timeline of events, more or less.
I have nothing to show on screen in terms of like a fancy timeline, but really there's only like 4 or 5 things that have happened anyway. But January 1st, 2025, literally the first day of the year. And I said before we went live, I still want to talk a little bit carefully around this because it does involve somebody dying and a bomb going off. But in essence, we had what's known as the Tesla bomber. And then obviously that just seemed like a a thing that happened, but then less than a week later, we had Sam Shoemate, is it, on the Sean Ryan podcast, talking about a manifesto he was sent by the Tesla bomber, a manifesto that has since been verified by the FBI as real and from the person that committed the crime. So that's technically the first thing that happened, and it happened at 8 a.m. on the first day of the year. So
Yeah.
Starting with a bang, literally.
yeah. So I don't know. I think it's worth, now a couple of months have passed, it's worth going back and thinking and
feels like
trying
that
to
was
pick apart
10
what
years
happened.
ago.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. Well, did that ever go anywhere beyond the manifesto coming out? Was there ever any other development after that, or did it just kind of go quiet?
So it never exactly went quiet. It's very evident to me that the manifesto details were not focused on whatsoever, especially the UAP related details. I mean, the details themselves, I mean, we know, we had it thrown in our face all the time that it apparently... Oh, have you lost me?
No, you're there.
Can you still hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, well, I can't hear anything right now, but I'll keep talking for a moment. So we've had, Sam Shoemate received an email, and yeah, the details, we learned everything about apparently Livelsberger having some troubles at home, having PTSD, but hearing the actual parts about anti-gravity technology being employed by China, that's not something I've heard, but it's out there. It's in Newsweek. I'll share it in a second once I get my audio working again. But yeah, so
well, I guess in context of what was going on at the time, this would have been a few months into the drone thing. The drone thing had been going on for a while now. There was the sighting, all the different drone sightings at Lakenheath in the UK, and there was the American Air Force Base, I forget which one it was, that was shut down for a period of time because of drone sightings. They were all over the eastern seaboard. And then this bombing happens, and his manifesto comes out, and he's saying that they're Chinese anti-gravity drones. But that statement, I don't think he was the first to drop that. That had been floating around. Wasn't that a Reddit rumor or a Twitter rumor for a while?
So I just did a video today about China, precisely, because there's a lot of I'm part of a few chats that where there's a lot of people from the intel community and from the military who are like very anti-China, anti-Russia, and I get it. I get that you guys are like in a superpower war of sorts, but I think that underestimating other countries is a big mistake. And I've seen over the last like 6 months um, that I've been paying attention to this, people like Christopher Mellon or people like Matthew Pines talking about China actually uh, potentially having some breakthrough that they did have. And I don't think that we should ignore the fact that, yes, there have been crashes in other countries like China, and there have been crash retrievals in other countries like China or Russia. And who knows what they've been doing. We must not forget that this country is arguably right now the oldest civilization that is still going right now. They have a lot of history, they have a lot of secrets, and I was really disappointed when I saw Americans dismissing China like that. I don't think that's a good idea. So I don't know if they do have this technology, but I don't think dismissing them is okay.
Dan, what do you think?
I think I agree completely. I think if any other country were to be where we are at or ahead of us, it would absolutely be China. And from what I've heard, they don't have like work regulations like we do, so they can have people working 20-hour days or do whatever around the clock. And when you're under that kind of rule, that president can get from his people whatever he wants. Like, he makes the rules, and if he wants a breakthrough, he's going to get a breakthrough. So that completely makes sense to me. And I think underestimating them would be a very, very bad mistake. So I agree completely.
It reminds me of something I was looking at a few months ago. This story about Amy Eskridge, who was the
daughter,
young scientist. She ran the Institute for Exotic Science in Huntsville, Alabama. Her father worked for NASA. She was a super genius. One of these people who was just brilliant from childhood all the way through her professional career. She passed away. She committed suicide apparently at like 28 years old. But before she passed away, before she died under mysterious circumstances for sure. Huntsville, Alabama is the center of research and development for NASA. And a lot of the work that she was involved in and her family was involved in had to do with gravity reduction technology, anti-gravity, nullifying gravity. She gave this interview that went on for like an hour and a half where she was really drunk. And during that interview, she talked about they had so much technology that had been developed under NASA funding, and this stuff would work. They would turn it on and it would work for the very first time, just the way they thought it would. And it would start producing data. And then they would apply for more funding and NASA would shelve the project. They would take the prototypes, they would melt them down for scrap, and they would sell them to scrap metal dealers. And this was the thing she was trying to get through to Jeremy Corbell. And in fact, I'll bet you if you asked Jeremy about this, he would remember this. She talks about Jeremy in this interview. And then in a follow-up to that, she talked about being how permeated Huntsville, Alabama was. It was like the most there were more intelligence agencies operating in Huntsville, Alabama than almost anywhere else. There were more, like almost everybody that was there was somehow tied to some different intelligence group from around the world. The Chinese in particular were very interested in the research that was going on in Huntsville, Alabama. And what's interesting about this whole story is that in that same town in Huntsville, Alabama, there was a researcher named Ning Li who worked on anti-gravity. Pavel, you know, Dan, did you ever get into this Ning Li story? She was an anti-gravity. She was an anti-gravity researcher that developed a prototype device that reduced the weight of anything placed above it, and it was some kind of a rotating superconductor disk. And there's a picture of it. If you type in Ning Li anti-gravity into DuckDuckGo and do an image search, it'll come right up. And she's in a newspaper, and they're showing her research team like holding this. After that that article gets published, she disappears from Huntsville without a trace. In fact, it's such a big mystery that it's in the Huntsville local newspaper. There's an article called "The Hunt for Ning Li, the missing anti-gravity scientist of Huntsville, Alabama." So she vanishes without a trace, and it was hypothesized at the time that she had gone to work for the Chinese. And that was never proven, but she could have just gone underground and maybe something happened. But there seems to be a lot of connection between anti-gravity research and stuff going on in this weird conflict, this sort of Cold War with China. It doesn't strike me as very far from the realm of possibility that they could make a breakthrough first and they could demonstrate it first. Like almost, do you get the sense that that's what's motivating all this? Do you guys think that is what's pushing this whole agenda forward? Is to get ahead of the Chinese?
Dan?
I would think so. I would, in my opinion, China is more likely than we are in some ways, just because of what I said earlier, just like the
whole top down. Yeah,
exactly. So sure, I think there's definitely, I mean, we hear Grush and all kinds of folks talking about this UFO arms race type deal. Of course, it makes complete sense to me, and it's terrifying.
I was part of have you guys seen the Ecosystemic Futures podcast that I've been like repeating ad nauseum?
Yes.
There was like an event from the people that organized that podcast that hasn't been made public yet that I was invited to. And there was people from NASA currently working at NASA talking about faster than light communication, a new type of like carbon fiber material that enables faster than light communication. They were talking about time-space manipulation, very matter-of-factly. And there was something that they mentioned there that I found really interesting, that there was a group of tech scientists from China going around different conventions all around the world about tech, approaching other countries, trying to work on extended electrodynamics, which is like the new thing pertaining to anti-gravity, quote unquote. And I found it really interesting that they are already behaving as if it's already here. There was already some kind of a breakthrough. And that really startled me, because if they're like already doing this out in the public, who knows what the hell they're doing in secret, man? You know?
That's something that, who was saying that about AI the other day? Somebody said, and I don't know who this was, but they were saying, as good as whatever the next ChatGPT model is that comes out, or the next Claude model, or the next Grok model, like, you've got to believe that these guys are holding back the super AGI. There's another one that's like 10 levels beyond that, that's secretive, and they're keeping it behind closed doors for their own use. And I wonder, like, how long until someone just decides to start really using this stuff? If they're sitting on UFO technology, what's to stop another, like a first strike kind of a attack from another country? We find out about it that way, you know?
So the key point from the manifesto that Livelsberger emailed over to Shoemate was that this is the most dangerous threat to national security that has ever existed, and that when he's referring to the drones being sent from China, basically they have an unlimited payload capacity and can park it over the White House if they wanted. It's checkmate.
So if that were the case, why wouldn't they have done it yet? It seems like what would be the point of waiting? What are they waiting for to show that kind of force?
My guess is, I would imagine that there's no real, you can't contain this kind of technology amongst the highest levels of private industry. So I would imagine that they know full well that the US has the same capability, and that Russia has the same capability as well. And this is likely just the new it's the new mutually assured destruction.
The new nukes. Yeah.
But what did
exactly.
well, in his manifesto? So here's my question: in his manifesto, why should we believe that this guy has any kind of insider information about any of this stuff?
So the only thing he pointed to, and I don't have this to hand, otherwise I would show it on screen. If I can find it over the next sort of 5 minutes, I'll share it on screen. He made reference to having direct knowledge of a program related to drones within Area 51 itself, and he sent, actually, in the manifesto, there's a screenshot, a Google Maps screenshot pointing to the warehouse that it's in. So he in essence, it's a trust me, bro. He's claiming inside knowledge, and the only thing that we have to go on is the fact that he is who he says he is, or let's say was who he says he was, and yeah, I don't know if it's been verified that he's worked at Area 51 or anything. Maybe Pavel knows. I don't know. Pavel's the guru on this stuff, but it seems it's another case of I have inside knowledge, basically.
Yeah, that's something else I want to talk about with you guys later.
What kind of rubs me the wrong way a little bit is that they used a platform like Sean Ryan, and I mean, he has a huge platform, and a lot of the interviews he does are really cool. But I think that guy is biased, because he's like, first of all, I saw him on Joe Rogan talking about religious fundamentalism, saying that we are living in the end times, stuff like that. That makes me just like doubt him, you know. And more stuff has happened with him that I just don't agree with, and that would be the only thing that I
Well, like
just,
what? Because I don't know anything about this guy. I just know that I watch. Sometimes his interviews show up in my feed, and they're usually pretty good. So I watch them.
Just before Pavel gets into that, and I agree with you, Pavel, by the way, the only other angle, I guess, is that Sean Ryan is very popular with military. So people that are interested in podcasts and are also in the military, they know about Sean Ryan, and they are likely watchers.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But yes, Pavel makes a very good point.
Yeah,
But
and
he's so far, as I could tell, I haven't seen anything to, that he seems like just a good interviewer.
well, it's a recent controversy with the Chris Bledsoe episode where allegedly Science Bob McGuire just came out on a Twitter space saying that Chris Bledsoe was angry that his episode was heavily edited when he talked about Jesus, this whole prophecy thing.
So after there was Sean Ryan decided not to publish that podcast. That was initially the issue. And Ryan Bledsoe went out and called him out and said that, he's a great guy, but he's decided to distance himself from our story. That was the controversy that followed. And then like a week later, Sean Ryan puts that episode back. And you're saying that episode that was put back was edited heavily, and that is now a new wrinkle in this whole thing?
That's what Science Bob is claiming, that he spoke directly with Bledsoe,
okay.
and that Bledsoe was really angry because that part of the episode was heavily edited to make it seem like Bledsoe said Jesus was coming back on 2026, which I've never seen or heard Chris Bledsoe say before.
I've also heard that specific accusation myself from another source as well.
I've never heard him say Jesus is coming, but he definitely says like Easter 2026 is going to be a big day.
I think he did infer that Jesus was coming back on Easter. I think that was.
It was Sean Ryan that said the word Jesus, and Bledsoe nodded or did a kind of thing.
Yeah.
But could you also interpret that as like whatever you would think of when you think of the Jesus entity? Like, some people call that a Jesus, but a being that would fill that symbolic role would appear. This is the thing that I actually really want to dig into, is this whole notion of angels and demons, good and evil. What should we do? Like Chris Bledsoe, for instance, is adamant that this is a good thing, and there's going to be a lot of trouble. There's going to be a lot of craziness, but when it's all said and done, at the end of the day, this is all going to be worth it, and it's going to be 1,000 years of peace. That's what he said. And that sounds great. But how does it, I have the same problem with his statement as I do with a guy like Stephen Greer saying that there's no threat from these things. We have no idea what we don't know, but he's out there saying, I'm 100% sure that they're, human beings are the only issue here. We're the only problem. And it just feels like we know less. Although we feel like we know a lot more since 2017, I feel like I know less than ever about what the fuck is actually going on. Do you guys feel that way? Does anyone else feel completely lost and disoriented all the time now?
Pavel, where are you at?
Well, it's really difficult because I did have a near-death experience in 2014, and that really marked my life. That and the psychedelic trips that I did for like a decade. But that NDE made me realize that there is something really strange going on in terms of whatever happens after we die. There's something there that speaks to us, and I don't know if it's related to the UFO topic, but I know that there is something there, and I don't want to say that it's religious. I don't think it is. I think people are confusing it for something religious because religions have like dominated humanity for over 2,000 years. But it's really difficult for me to like just say, yeah, it is angels or it is demons, or maybe it's just something that people have interpreted as that for over 2,000 years that we don't know what it is. That's why I keep going back to Jacques Vallée's Passport to Magonia, because I think him and John Keel are the ones that I think got the closest to defining what we're dealing with. It's some type of phenomenon that plays with human perception, and it's obviously more intelligent than us. That's as far as I go, really.
I think that's the thing, right? It's like, we've gone from flying saucers and gray aliens. It used to be it's like my wife and I were talking about this the other day. We were looking at my son's toys. He's got all these dinosaur toys. And I'm like, when I was a kid in the 80s, there were like 4 dinosaurs. There was Tyrannosaurus Rex, Brontosaurus, Stegosaurus, and that other one with the weird
Pterodactyl.
The pterodactyl, the flying one. That's it. And now there's like 150 different kinds. This is a terrible example, but I just thought it was funny. we had grays, we had flying saucers. It was kind of clearly defined what the UFO space was. And now I feel like at 2025, I don't even know which direction is up anymore. There's orbs, there's non-dimensional, non-physical beings, there's spirits and demons.
Plasmoids. It's like, what the hell's
Fucking
a plasmoid?
plasmoids. Like, it's just a year ago, we were having conversations in Congress about going into these facilities and retrieving hardware and technology. And now we're talking about meditating in a field and looking at lights in the sky. And I feel like the longer we're in this thing, the further we get away from any kind of accountability, any kind of hands-on technology. None of this stuff is really bearing fruit, but we are getting a lot of crazy stories. And Stephen Greer's out again. He's just did the Khloe Kardashian podcast saying XYZ, whatever. I feel like the community, and from what I'm picking up online in the comments that I'm reading, and guys in the chat, please jump in here if you have any thoughts on this. It just feels like there's a backlash brewing, a large group of people who are starting to get really burnt out on all this, that thought maybe there would be something more tangible happening by now, but it just seems like we're just spinning our wheels.
So
what do you guys think?
I think that last year, yeah, it was all nuts and bolts. And I think if we were to continue down that path, I do think it would be likely that we'd get an answer sooner. But the answer we get, I don't think we'd understand in the way that we might if we were able to understand the other side of all of this, which has been dominating 2025 so far. I think I think honestly, if we go and knock on the door, break the door down to S4, we'd probably see something. We'd be able to verify the claims of people like Bob Lazar and Dan Burrish, for example. And I don't think that would get us much closer to understanding what's actually going on, only that we would know with 100% certainty that there is something going on. I think we could even see a craft, and we wouldn't be any closer to really understanding what the nature of it is. And I think that's what the whole other side of this argument is that it's going to take a lot longer for us to understand using, all the things that the psionics community is talking about and what Greer has talked about for the last 20, 30 years. And I don't know if we're ready for that side of it yet. And I think maybe the ultimate answer is we really aren't ready to understand what this is. But if we see a craft, at least we'll know we're not wasting our time. And I think it's still a good thing to pursue, 100%.
Maybe the point of all this coming out is to just bog us down with info, so a lot of us just feel overwhelmed and kind of just take a step back and stop asking so many questions. Maybe just like tire society so much that we kind of just say fuck it and walk away and, go back to not talking about it. Maybe.
That makes sense.
What do you think is going on?
That could happen.
What do you think about this whole angels and demons stuff?
It's hard for me because my whole life I've been pretty staunchly anti-religion for myself, and I don't like terms, angels and demons. I think that's just easy for people to label it that way because it's confusing, and sometimes they look angelic and sometimes they look demonic. But I don't think it's either one of those things, and I don't like that it's being put in that basket. Like Xander's saying, I think there's just so much more to it that we're just trying to use these terms that we have some kind of familiarity with to make us comfortable. But really, a lot of the stuff, to me at least, is completely indescribable and beyond the language that we have to describe, I think.
I think the bigger question is, would we know what we were looking at if we saw it anyway? Like,
who's we? Society or scientists or the government? Who?
Well, exactly, yeah. Right? So this is the question, right? Like, all we have to go on are Trust Me Bro stories and the word of people who claim that they know what's going on. But the word of people who claim that they've been part of this thing has gone from a very physical, like Roswell, literally like shit all over the ground. Like we had guys out there with trucks picking it up. There's like chairs, and there's writing, and there's little pieces of metal, and there's stuff. And now we're talking about angels and fucking demons and stuff, and it just feels like this is some kind of weird. For one thing, this feels like it could be some kind of psyop because it just doesn't feel right. Something about it just doesn't feel right. And two, of course, they're going to appear to us as godlike. If they're that advanced, they would appear to be godlike, but that doesn't translate necessarily into them actually being gods. That's the thing I think that is a huge danger for an unprepared public coming to grips with this reality if it were thrust upon them suddenly in a catastrophic contact scenario where suddenly like they appear and it's just like, okay, we've got 48 hours to get everybody on board because they're fucking here. You're going to have people who believe in them and treat them like gods. For them, they will fill the gap of some kind of a religious experience. It's almost like with the tech bros in Silicon Valley with the singularity becoming like a religion for, tech people. There are going to be people who treat it that way, but we don't know what we're looking at because no one will give us any information. And I think that's the real danger, right? Like, it's one thing to classify the research because you don't want your adversaries to know what's going on, but it's quite another thing when people of Earth have to deal with the situation and you've given them nothing to go on for 80 years, and then suddenly we have to figure it out for ourselves. I just feel like the whole space is being like managed right now, and I don't know what to know. I don't know what we think we know. I don't know what's real. Everything we think we know comes through one outlet, News Nation. It doesn't it feel weird to you guys?
Very, very. But I'm also comfortable with the idea that, obviously the higher ups, the government folks or scientists know more than we do. But I also am comfortable thinking that they don't know enough to share anything because if there's one thing they hate saying, it's I don't know. It's a bad place for them to be in when they can't give solid info. So the best thing to do is just it. You know what I mean? For government to come out and say, this is real, but we don't know how to protect you. They would never do that.
You know what kind of puzzles me though?
You know what
That people like, for example, Diana Pasulka and Jacques Vallée. Pasulka recently came out saying that she believes it is angelic. But you can understand her position given her specialty, which is religious studies, right? So, but what puzzles me is that people like Jacques Vallée have a collection of books that talk about angels, angelic beings, and demonic beings. That puzzles me. And also, I don't know if I've told you this, guys, but when I spoke to Nick Cook, I had 3 calls with him. And one of those calls that was in private, right before he hung up, he told me that that he was like working on the side of the angels, and then he hung up, and I was like, you can't just leave me like that. Drop that shit on me and just hang up the call, man. And
This is the psyop shit. This is what feels weird to me.
He's never responded to that question afterwards. He just like deviates from the question. And I keep telling him, why did you say that? That was really weird.
There was I'm sure someone out there who's got nimble fingers can Google up the information here. Oh, by the way, this is just fun information for people to know. Stanford released a AI research tool called Storm, and if you go to Stanford's website and you look for Stanford Storm AI research assistant, this research assistant will act like a person, and you can give it a topic. I did it the other day with alien abductions, and it'll write like a 12-page article with citations, and it'll give you everything. It's awesome. But where was I going with that? It was just a sidebar that I wanted to throw out there. The technology that these beings will be able to demonstrate is going to appear to be godlike. There was a technology there was a white paper that came out in the 90s. They were talking about, and this research could have been going on probably was going on in the mid 80s or early 80s at the time. And I remember seeing this. It was about a hologram technology that they were going to deploy in Iraq in the Gulf during the first Gulf War, Gulf War I, because there were 2, Gulf War I, and it would put a projection into the sky that would look like whatever religious figure you wanted. and it would make the soldiers on the ground think that God was speaking to them. It was like the voice of God technology or whatever it was. And that's a real thing. That was a psychological warfare weapon that was being developed. It probably was developed. Who knows if it's been deployed? We know that some of the directed energy weapons that are being blamed for what's being called Havana syndrome. One of the symptoms of Havana syndrome is that you hear voices in your head. It can affect your thoughts. So how do we know that what we're seeing and hearing and what people are actually talking about are legitimate UFOs that have to do with the actual phenomenon that we're used to talking about? And how much of this is just manufactured weird information to just throw people off, especially this whole Jesus angle? This thing is new. It just seemed like it came out of nowhere in the last couple of months. Lou Elizondo dropped it in his book. He talked about what was that group in Congress called? The Collins Elite. Then you had Chris Bledsoe has talked about it at length. He, I believe, was one of the things he was shown was a projection. It seems like the lady with the bull and all that. What he's describing is a hologram in that conversation. I don't know, man. I just feel like we've gotten more information and we've gotten more whistleblowers and more storytellers, but the stories are weirder and the whole information space is so cloudy.
What really, I've told you, the only thing that I can actually say with certainty that I know it's real is ESP, because I've experienced something to that nature. But what worries me is that they might be using our perception to trick us, and it's impossible.
Who's they?
Well, whoever has been controlling all of this. I mean,
Yeah.
This MK Ultra program, that's real too,
Yeah.
And Stargate is real. It existed. I don't know if it still does, maybe under a different name, but they've been doing psychological operations for decades. Why would they stop now? I don't think they have. And I think that it's gotten so sophisticated over the years that right now it's really impossible to tell what is and what isn't. And that's what pisses me off, because I have experienced CSP. I know it's real, but I don't know who to trust and who to believe.
That's it. You just said it. That's exactly it. It's like you've got your own personal experience to trust. That's what you have. And then you have the word of the people around you that you trust. But who to trust is the question. And it's like we just don't know.
Guys, have you seen the talking lasers video?
Yes.
I think you sent this to me. Maybe it's worth showing.
Please show that.
Oh my God, this blew me away. I don't
this
know if
is
you've
from
seen this
20 years ago, wasn't it?
It's a few years old, but it's essentially balls of plasma that can talk to you. So let me play. I think this is the right video. I've not watched it.
This is it. I'm pretty sure this is the one.
Yeah, it is. It is. I've seen it.
Pentagon scientists have finished testing on an early weapon that can make laser plasma balls talk.
Stop, or we will be forced to fire upon you.
Oh
It's called
my
the
God.
laser-induced plasma effect, and it's made by the Joint Non-Lethal Weapons Directorate. So what they've done is basically created a laser that can shoot out to a certain distance, and they can pipe in sound waves through it, and actually make human voice sounds and commands.
Stop, or we will be forced to fire upon
Now, where this becomes useful is around an area where you want to keep a perimeter secure. So essentially, you can shoot out this laser, you can then talk to the people on the edge of the perimeter rather than sending troops out there and tell them to get away, or you're going to shoot, or get away, or they're going to use other means to deter them. And that same laser can be used to actually target the individual and create heat through pinpricks, like microscopic pinpricks in their skin, even beneath clothing. It's extremely uncomfortable, and people move out of the way almost immediately. At the same time, the exact same laser is also being used as kind of a never-ending flashbang grenade. It can basically, with a power source, it can constantly create audible effects to deter and confuse and disorient people, just like a flashbang grenade that you would have in your kit, but would only be able to flash once, maybe twice, depending on the design. Now, it's still a few years away. They just finished testing to get the audio portion through the laser in a laboratory setting this year, but they expect to have a fieldable version within the next 5 years that troops could use to protect different areas or put on mobile platforms to disperse crowds or use in a non-lethal way in theater.
So that was 5 years ago. So
Yeah.
it might be kicking around right now.
That's a DARPA sponsored project, by the way.
DARPA sponsor project. And if he was saying 5 years ago that it was going to roll out in a few years, that means that they've probably had it for 20 years in a different form.
That to me, like I've worked in audio since leaving university, so 13 years. The idea of throwing sound in that way, it just sounds alien to, like, pardon the pun, I'm sorry, but it sounds alien to me. The idea that you can like throw sound to explode and disperse a crowd or cause a sensation in the skin is absolutely crazy. And
Coming soon to the climate wars near you.
That's happened to me on psychedelics, by the way. I've heard colors. I've seen tastes. Stuff
But this
like
is
that.
the thing that like that drone that we saw from 1993, the drone that was the size of a watermelon that was hovering in the middle of the room, and it would like shoot up vertically and move around at right angles. You take that drone technology, give it 40 years of development, plug in something like this plasma thing that we just saw. I mean, you have to ask the question, is like what a lot of what we're seeing, how do we know what we're seeing are legitimate UFOs unless they're just demonstrating the 5 observables? It's more likely that they're not. So this whole drone thing that was going on for however long, it's still going on, I guess. Strange lights in the sky, strange sounds. I don't know.
maybe
I didn't
it's
see anything
worth,
that looked very alien to me.
I agree. Maybe it's worth, now we're effectively talking about drones, so maybe we
Move on.
talk about Trump's assessment of the drones. And Pablo
Sure,
holds his
yeah.
head.
What do you
Should
want to
I
say
read
about it?
It's not a long video. I can, it's not a long video, so I can show Trump's assessment.
Yeah,
Can't
let's
wait.
watch it.
Can't wait. Just give me a second. Here we go.
What will he say next?
What will he do next?
Directly from the President of the United States. That was just shared with me in the Oval Office. From President Trump directly, an update on the New Jersey drones. After research and study, the drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. Many of these drones were also hobbyists, recreational, and private individuals that enjoy flying drones. In time, it got worse due to curiosity. This was not the enemy.
You can't help but smirk when you
Come
listen to
on.
it.
Yeah.
I know.
About one day into my new term, I'm going to tell everybody what they are. I don't know why Biden doesn't tell them what they are. He knows what they are. He's not going to tell anybody. I'll tell you.
And then just doesn't tell you.
Bullshit.
Bullshit indeed.
And
All these
we
people
also-
who are like, he's your disclosure president. I'm like, I got news for you, dude. Like, you're not going to hear about this again. He's moved on.
We also, I don't know if it hit stories in the US, but we had some sort of resolution on the UK drones as well. So apparently it was all Russian spying drones that had been placed.
That's embarrassing.
There. They were, apparently all of these people were hired to work in farming, agriculture around the area. Bearing in mind the whole of the UK is full of farms, so we don't know. But apparently it was all Russia.
Ah,
But
Do
we
you
can't
believe that?
track where they came from. We can only track the people that were apparently operating these drones. But we saw them coming in from the North Sea, and we couldn't see where they were coming from. That was, and it also took us 2 weeks to mobilize any sort of UK military.
pretty bad response time.
Yeah, especially
There's
for
a
the
lot of
SAS.
World War III vibes going on right now, and I don't know. It's plausible that it could be the Russians. Like, why wouldn't it be? Anything, you could throw anything at me now, and I just wouldn't be surprised anymore. The news is fucking crazy every single day. It's insane. I just feel like from one day to the next, I'm just trying to like maintain a grip on reality because it's like, If it's not forest fires or tornadoes or earthquakes or floods or hurricanes or whatever, or some kind of crazy mass layoffs or economic crash or whatever, it's just it's one thing after another. And I don't know, man. The geopolitical situation is so fucking weird right now. It makes me wonder, like, is the UFO thing related to how crazy things are? Is that what's motivating it to be more active right now? Is that why people are seeing more stuff? Because things are so wild and unpredictable? Are we on the verge of World War III? Are we overreacting? I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think the increase of sightings and experiences and these revelations coming out, I'm comfortable thinking there's a connection to the state of the world and how close we are. Like, we're getting just further apart as people in America. I mean, foreign relations are a nightmare all over the place. Well, especially coming from here at the moment. But I can definitely see that whatever they are, the others or whatever, having concern about where we're at as a civilization. And if they do maybe use this place for resources or do live here one way or another, whether in the oceans or a different dimension, why wouldn't they be concerned with how we're treating each other and the planet? So I think the increase of sightings, both on a personal level from civilians and military, makes sense to me. You know, I can definitely see why there might be a connection there.
Pavel, what do you think?
Oh man. I'm not sure what to think. Because there's a lot of history, right? When you talk about the others, I'm not sure if we are really a farm of some sorts that they've just like been evolving, taking care of for millennia. I do know that the connection with nuclear weapons and the apparent control that these craft or these beings have over our nuclear capabilities might be real. Um, and that gives me a little hope, just a little bit, because if those incidents happened, especially with, for example, the Bob Salas incident and the Dr. Jacobs incidents, that makes me think that we're not as in control as we think. They're just like allowing us to just keep bickering for a little while until they present themselves,
I
if they
think
do exist.
I'm trying to articulate a series of questions that are very hard for me to wrap my hands around. And I feel like I'm doing a shitty job, but I think what I'm driving at here is this. It feels like, as the UFO disclosure, I don't know what you want to call it, the world that we're in all the time, where we're talking about disclosure, we're talking about UFOs, that conversation has, starting in 2017, was taken over by this idea of disclosure. This was the only thing that mattered, disclosure. We got away from everything else and we focused so much on this. And now we're shifting into this psionics thing. And as that conversation has evolved and moved that quickly from nuts and bolts, flying saucers and little gray aliens and abductions through this disclosure phase into this psionics phase, we've gone over this like 10-year arc. The world situation has gotten considerably worse. I think by any metric that you choose to measure, people are less happy. We're closer to the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists has the atomic clock at 90 seconds to midnight or 89 seconds to midnight now. We're closer to nuclear war, Armageddon, than we've ever been. You know, the climate change situation is a joke. No one's even talking about it. It's only going to get worse. Whatever your thoughts are on it, like all of these different metrics that we're measuring the health of our civilization, the health of our planet, the health of our society, they're getting worse. And on top of all of it, it looks like the leadership in charge is just as fucking clueless as we were all terrified that they were. And no one really knows what they're doing. Certainly not here in the United States, for sure.
Yeah.
So then the question is, are these two things reacting to one another, or is the UFO conversation being managed to just keep people distracted from how fucked up other things are? Does that make sense?
Could be both.
Could be both.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I do think it could be both. And there's also one thing that it is gonna happen. I know it's more storytelling. I know people are like kind of sick of that. They want to see evidence, but just imagine 2 days from now, in that documentary that is coming out, if Obama or somebody like that appears there and confirms something, or they show something, what would the conversation be like right afterwards? I'm really interested to see that, because it does kind of feel like it's 34 people I heard, and in the
Yeah.
trailer we don't even see 10 of them. So who are the other 24?
Yeah.
You think that might be saving someone for the premiere, saving some, like holding some big name back?
I think so, yeah. And we've seen Obama saying that UFOs are real before.
Yep.
He was on the James Corden show admitting that. And if somebody knows something who was a president right now, it would be him, I would think.
Do you think even if Obama came out and said something, I doubt he would, but if it were him or someone of that level, which there's only a few people it could be, would it even matter at this point? Like, what matters? What would take this thing? What would move the needle significantly that it would actually change things for the regular person, the average person?
A press conference where they show something. I think that would be necessary for the general public to be like, all right, pull the tarp off the craft and like, here's one. I know you have a lot of questions. We're going to get there, but step one is it's real. Here it is. We have a lot of work to do. Sorry, everybody, for 80 years of lying to your face, but let's start working on this. I think it would take something like that. I don't think any more press conferences or people going on record will move the needle for society. I think society is so bored with words and stories and thoughts. We all love it because we kind of are educated on this topic, but the general public needs to see something.
Yeah, something similar to what Sorensen saw on that, like Mark McCandlish story of the ARVs. Something like that needs to happen. Like they gotta open the curtain and something needs to be hovering over the ground, and that would make people like go like, okay.
Well, that was this whole backlash that I wanted to get to was the backlash against Jake Barber, right? So the rumor that's floating around is that this is the rumor that I've heard most recently, the most recent rumor, I should say, about Jake Barber, who at face value I like. I have questions about Jake Barber, but somebody told me the other day, they were like, it's like this guy was brought forward to unite the clans, to unite the warring factions of ufology. Like you've got the Stephen Greer people on one side, you've got the Lou Elizondo people over here, you've got, this sort of distributed group of UFO enthusiasts, and you need a story that ties it all together and makes it with a character behind it that you can believe in. That's somebody that's got some charisma. And I guess Jake Barber, at least according to this rumor, is that, or was intended to be that person. And people are reacting to it in a really negative way. They're like, what the fuck is this shit? You said you were going to drop a video of a crash retrieval. So everybody thought that they were going to see like body cam footage of some Navy SEALs going in to like pull an alien out of a craft. And instead what they got was, it might as well be fake. The egg thing might as well be fake. It means nothing in terms of what, as real as it may very well be, it really means nothing. It doesn't move the needle at all. And that to me feels like something that was dropped to manage the conversation. It feels like something from like Wag the Dog. Remember that movie, Wag the Dog? Where they get Dennis Leary and he's like the fad king and they bring him in and they're like, we got to sell this war. And they're, trying to explain to people how they're going to do it. They go into that studio and they're like filming the girl and she's running with the little kitten. And I don't know, man. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
There's an aspect of this that I also find a little concerning on Jake Barber, because I don't know if you saw when he was on the New Paradigm Institute, I think it was, on the Psionic Summit, there was a poster behind him of a Northrop Grumman announcement of a craft. And then Danny Sheehan came out and said that he was working for Northrop Grumman. And if he's still working for them, those guys are supposed to be the ones that are keeping a lot of this stuff secret. That
Wait, so Jake
I don't
Barber was working
understand.
for Northrop Grumman?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what Danny Sheehan said. Yeah,
It's
that's
pretty
what
much
Danny Sheehan
confirmed at this point that
Yep.
the contractor he's been talking about is Northrop Grumman. Yeah.
And I think that there's like this PR move to make these companies not seem like the bad guys. And
That's what it feels like.
I don't like that, because that also happened with Tom DeLonge. Tom DeLonge has pictures with two of Lockheed Martin's Skunk Works top brass people, and he said that they're like his secret weapons. And
This is
he
what I don't
obviously
get. What
likes
happened
them.
to Tom DeLonge? You know, like Tom DeLonge and To the Stars Academy and all this stuff that's like come and gone, and now it's like this whole weird discussion
Dan
about.
must know. He's clued into what he's got his
Yes,
fingers in
Dan.
those pies. Dan knows all
Oh,
of that.
I got questions for Dan.
My assumption with Tom, I know that he's still very much involved, but also this is the industry that I work in. I work in the music industry, so Blink 182 reunited with the full original lineup, and for the last few years they've been one of the biggest touring acts in the world. So my understanding is that he's not pulled himself away from it at all. He just can't do as much publicly and can't put as much work towards this, because he's been all over the world, you know, putting smiles on faces for a few years. So I don't think he's gone anywhere necessarily. He's just busy, but they are kind of winding down now. So maybe we'll hear more soon.
Plus,
I'm pretty
he's done
tight
some-
with that crew. Yeah, go ahead.
You got to get him on your podcast.
I'm trying.
Plus, he's done some other like To the Stars Academy podcasts with Semivan. He's been doing that. He did like 3 or 4 over the last 2 years, something like that. So he's not out. But I want to ask you, Dan, now that I have you here, all cornered and shit. I'm kidding. Do you know who the Immaculate Constellation whistleblower is? Do you know
No.
who he is?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I know better than to ask, but I do know that. My understanding is that we will all be finding out at some point in the near future, I think. Yeah, and I'm as excited as everybody is, but I know that person will be coming forward and speaking. I know it's a guy. I think we all know it's a man. But I'm excited. But no, I do not know.
I heard a rumor that I don't know if Amy Eskridge's father is still alive, but I heard a
think he
rumor
is.
that he might be that person. It's
Really?
just a rumor. Yeah, it was just a rumor that I heard. I don't think it's true. I don't know if it is, but I did hear something similar to that. Yeah.
And was he just a NASA guy, or was he a military guy as well?
I think he was just like a DARPA scientist. That's what
Okay.
or
She
the Department,
had-
Department of Energy, something like that.
This is what was so weird about the Amy Eskridge story is what she was trying to do was so cool. She had the coolest idea. They had put together this group called the Institute for Exotic Science. The Institute for Exotic Science was made up of scientists who had worked for NASA and other various aerospace companies that are associated with the various NASA programs in one way or another. And these scientists that had developed the technology that NASA passed on. So like anti-gravity shit that worked, or maybe it didn't work 100%, but it could make, it could reduce the
In
weight
theory,
of the craft.
in theory, it worked.
Or they had positive data that led them to think that if they got with continued funding, they could develop this into a functional prototype or something like that. But basically that was kind of the idea. And according to Amy, they had technology that worked. That was the thing. And so she formed this group, and it was with her father, as I understand it. And the group was the scientists that basically had all of the knowledge, everything they knew, just NASA didn't fund them. So they were going to partner with private investors, Silicon Valley guys, and take that money and develop the technologies. And then she committed suicide in her house one day, and that never happened. And it was really weird. So I don't know. And her father, as far as I understand it, her father has, for probably very good reasons, has not spoken out on it at all, and we don't know. But that story went ice cold and just kind of shut down. But she talked in that last interview she did. She was like, the intelligence people that are in this town, you think of it as like James Bond stuff, but it's not. It's like the guy who changes your oil. That's an intel guy. You know, the person in the waiting room when you go to the dentist that's overhearing your conversation. Or the secretary at the doctor's office. Like that could be, they work for some intelligence agency. You just don't know. And she was like, they have broken into my house. They've gone through my things. They've gone through my bedroom drawers, like left it a mess. They were after me. She thought they wanted her to come forward. And then I guess at that time she was trying to get to Jeremy Corbell. And then this was, years ago. So who knows what happened. But then, yeah, the situation with her sudden and weird tragic death was very unexpected.
There are many cases like that that are really dark, that involve scientists that were either silenced or disappeared or unalived under mysterious circumstances that were about to make some kind of a breakthrough or divulge some kind of information, and it just stops like that. And I think that's where most of the mystery comes from when it comes to this stuff, especially the tech stuff.
Well, can we go back to the Jake Barber thing for a second? Because you were saying he worked for, it's more or less confirmed that he worked for Northrop Grumman. Still does.
Well, when he was talking to Jesse Michaels, he said, whatever company you think of, or two companies you think of, you would probably guess it right. That's what he said.
Lockheed and Northrop Grumman.
Yeah, those are the first two that I think of.
So then why should we listen to this guy? Like, what is he saying how does that play into this agenda, this conversation he's having? He's out there publicly saying he's going to capture a UFO for a Silicon Valley billionaire. He's got a dune buggy. He's got with like a fucking Transformers thing on top of it. It's
serious when you have a dune buggy. When you have a dune buggy, it's serious business.
This is my point, right? So this is what I'm saying. Jake Barber is rolled out like a fucking Hollywood character. He's produced. There's something about him that is just too. That's what News Nation is providing. It seems like they provide this service of like, we're going to deliver this guy. We're going to come. He comes with a media package. We got slow motion shots of him walking up to the dune buggy with the walkie-talkie. He's flying a helicopter. It looks awesome. It's like a 1980s action show.
Clint, how many times have you watched my hype trailer?
It's
I
so
watched
good,
it
dude.
just before we went live.
Yeah, I like Jake. I think Jake's cool, and I don't know that he's produced. I just think of him as like a sensitive Rambo. You know, he has an emotional breakdown when he approaches the craft or whatever. But then like in every waking moment, he's armed to the teeth, and he doesn't give a fuck who's like pushing back on him. I am excited by what he might bring. I'm cautiously optimistic. You know what I mean? But I like what he's doing. I don't know that he's produced. I think there's just certain people that come forward that have the personality, and he's such a great speaker. You know what I mean? He's comfortable in his own skin, and maybe he kind of elevated himself into that role just by being comfortable in front of a camera, not intimidated by anybody. I'm excited by what he might do, actually.
I think that's one of the reasons David Grush backed up a little bit, because he said that he's autistic, and I'm married to an autistic woman, and I know how hard it is for them to be like in the public spotlight.
Sure.
And Jake Barber doesn't have that. He's like really comfortable there. So
Yep.
I love David Grush, but I can see Dave just looking at all the hate towards him and just going like, fuck this. I'm not doing any public speaking. Yep. And yeah, Jake seems more prepared for that. But I do want to point out something that I think it's important. This PR that is being done in favor of these aerospace companies, we must not forget that every time that some kind of war breaks in any part of the world, the stocks that go up instantly are those.
Yeah.
Because they still sell missiles, they still sell planes that go to war. So I don't think it's a good idea to just try to make good PR for these companies when they're doing all this other shit that they need to be held accounted for, you know?
Well, I think that's the other question is like, you've got, as you said, it feels like, whether it is or not an intentional PR campaign, it certainly feels like some kind of weird, maybe it's some kind of corporate psyop move to sort of soften people up to the idea of immunity or pardoning all these guys when it all does eventually come out. You know, maybe they're trying to lay the groundwork for that. I just feel like there's the chance of this space not being played. The intelligence agencies have fucked with the UFO community for 70 years. The idea that they would stop is crazy to me. So the question is, can you spot it if it's happening? How do you know when it's happening to you, or how can you tell? The thing with Jake Barber that's suspicious to me is that it's all the timing. Like the timing is like boom, boom, boom. These guys just roll out. And then there's another documentary, and then this guy goes on a speaking tour, and then there's another guy, and this was Whistleblowers comes out, and then so and so, and now Khloe Kardashian's got Stephen Greer, and it's like boom, boom, and it just keeps going. But we're in the end, what do we actually have to show for it? Jake Barber says we're going to capture a UFO, but why not just go capture one and then show up with that? Why make a TV series where we're going to follow him around and, you know, how many episodes is this going to be? What if this doesn't go anywhere? Yeah. Do people just get burnt out and give up?
I mean, to their credit, it's not paywalled, at least.
Yep.
You know,
it's funny you said that, because last night I was laying in bed, couldn't go to sleep, and I was thinking, it popped in my head like, man, I hope that Jake Barber doesn't get a TV show. It's literally a thought I had last night. I don't want it to be a Skinwalker Ranch TV show. I think that takes away from the power of what he's trying to do.
But isn't that what the Skywatch series basically is? I mean, even if it's not behind a paywall, it's
I don't
but
think it that way.
It's free. It's free on YouTube. I mean, you know, I don't have a problem with that.
So far, I see it as like, here's our claim.
Yeah.
And here's our transparency. Here's what we're working on. Like, here's what we said. Here's what we're trying to do. Here's what we've found so far. He hasn't asked for money yet. He's made it very clear that they're already funded. It's already a fully funded, fully funded whatever they're trying to do.
So they've got a blank check from whoever their investors.
Right. So I think that the point of having YouTube videos isn't to like gather more funds or get more support. I think it's just like, here's what we're doing. You know?
Yeah.
They don't have to prove anything to anybody except for the people writing the checks, and they don't need YouTube for that. So I think, to me, it just feels like a way of being transparent with the public.
That's fair. That's fair.
We have a caller who might want to weigh in on this.
Jake Barber, you're on the line.
Long time listener, first time caller.
That'd be great.
Who's our caller?
So Chaos, are you there?
Oh, it's Greer.
All right, excellent. You're going to be live in 3, 2, 1. All right.
Jake Barber, you're on the line. Long time listener, first time caller.
Well, I'm not Jake Barber. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Chaos, we can hear you, but there's a little bit of a lag. So go right ahead. You're live.
All right. Yeah, I'm not Jake Barber, but he seems like a pretty cool cat. I was wondering, like, do you guys know about like the TR3B, the manned, yeah, I'm not Jake Barber, but he's Black Manta. Sorry, the delay is kind of driving me crazy here. 1 second.
You can mute it.
Okay. Yeah, I turned my TV off. So it's a high security anti-gravity espionage aircraft TR3B Black Manta. And I mean, this has been reported on since like 2009. And then if you look at like the official website for the TR3B, they're saying like it'll be operational and live in 2030. So like we have that, which is an aircraft that produces plasma to create acceleration, and then the plasma causes it to not be detected by radar. We have that, and then all of these UAP, UFO drone sightings, orb sightings all around America, and then the FAA, like the Flight Administration Authority, basically kind of getting neutered a bit by the Musk efficiency program. So like, what's to say that the drones aren't like, because like the TR-3B is a manned plane, right? But like we have AI now, and like most of warfare is kind of being in drones. So what's to say that like these drones aren't utilizing the same kind of technology as the TR-3B? is kind of what I wanted to bring to the conversation.
I think that's what the Tesla bomber was trying to say, right? Wasn't that more or less what his claim was in his manifesto?
That we have gravitic technology. Yeah, he said that.
If that's true, then, you know, if we're in some kind of like UFO technology reverse engineered stalemate where everybody's got a perfect first strike weapon and everybody's got like, it's that scene in Reservoir Dogs where they're all pointing their guns at each other.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Mexican standoff.
That's
No,
scary.
sir, I don't like it.
terrifying.
Not to be confused with the Canadian standoff where everyone holds the door open for each other and no one walks through.
That's what the Canadians
I like that
said.
one better. I like that one better.
Yeah.
No, you go first. No, you go first.
I'm trying to find something that you just reminded me of that I wanted to share. But weirdly, Amy Eskridge did a presentation in Huntsville on anti-gravity technology in front of a room full of people. And she shows pictures of the TR-3B and talks about it. And I've got the video pulled up, but I'm trying to find the TR-3B photo. And there's the shot where it looks like they're in a hangar and there's like a team of people standing around it. Oh, here it is. I just found it. Let's see if I can show this.
Yeah, like
Oh, we've lost him. I'm sorry.
That's a wild photo, man. I know which one you're talking about.
Let's see if I can do this real quick. I'm going to share a tab. Hang on.
I have a couple of questions after this that I think.
So this is
relevant.
Amy Eskridge right here. So this is her.
Rotate and all of that, but they also, kind of the different part about this one is that there's actually a ferromagnetic fluid inside the center disc here, and kind of.
Let me skip ahead here.
Did you say magnetic fluid?
For advanced propulsion or the GRASP program. Has been around probably for a while, but they admitted to it publicly in 2014 is when they sort of admitted they had that program. I was reading there's some chatter about maybe Podletkanov being involved in this. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but I was sort of hearing that. And then, so these are so Phantom Works is where you get these black triangles that people talk about sometimes. So if you're into like the UFO scene, MUFON has a lot of reports of these like black triangles that people look up and they just see like a black triangle blocking out the stars in the sky. There's a lot of reports of things like that. And that is supposedly the TR-3B black triangle. And sort of the rumor is that that's what you call an ARV, which is an alien reproduction vehicle, which is sort of like meant to look like a UFO, but isn't really one because it's really from Boeing. So,
Wow.
And the mechanism maybe resembles a Brown generator. I don't know. It's hardly.
So this is over an hour-long presentation where she's just talking about anti-gravity research and all of the stuff that's going on that her people are working on. It's very interesting. I'll see if I can drop a link to this in the show notes. But anyway,
If you send it to me in the private chat, I'll put it in the Discord right now. And for anybody watching, if you join our Discord, we post our live links as we go along because we're pretty free flow. So stuff like this, I didn't know we were going to go here, so I post the link to it.
There you go.
I saw a triangle when I was 16 in Massachusetts.
You saw one, really?
I did. My my high school girlfriend's father was giving me a ride home from her house at night. I don't know what time of year it was, but kind of basically right over my house and kind of in my small town in Massachusetts, I saw, for 6 or 7 seconds, which actually is a pretty long time, triangle in the sky with a light in each corner. And this is it was either a yellow light in each corner with these like blue, like 3 or 4 blue diagonal lights between each yellow light, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that for 6 or 7 seconds, and it was just like, holy shit. Very, very clearly saw it. And it's funny because I grew up kind of near an army base called Fort Devens in Massachusetts. And come to find out, I was just listening to Jason Sands on the Julian Dory podcast, and he mentioned that he used to work at Fort Devens, which I had no idea.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, some percentage of this has to be our technology for sure.
Yeah.
You think that's what it was? It was a ARV.
Don't know. I have no way of knowing. I never put much thought into like, I just no way of knowing. I always thought it was something else. I didn't think it was ours. We hear a lot about us making those, but they have to be based on something else, I would think. I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? It's fun though.
You were not that young though, so
I was 16.
yeah, you were a teenager.
Yeah, I was 16.
Wow.
Do you think the technology that lies behind this anti-gravitic technology is similar to regular combustion technology that we've used in automobiles? As in, when I say that, I mean the modern engine is far more efficient, gets more mileage, versus an engine 100 years ago, which really you'd look at and think, okay, that's just not optimized whatsoever. Do you think that that anti-gravitic technology is the same? So there's talk that TR3B may have, like, well, let's just say human capability, although we've unlocked this sort of path of propulsion, the reactionless propulsion, we still don't have the capability that NHI might have, which would be to literally travel anywhere instantly. The TR3B may be able to travel extremely fast, to the point even that we can't perceive it even leaving. It could be that fast. But there's still a big difference between, let's say, 17,000 miles per hour and breaching the speed of light. To the naked eye, they look very similar. In terms of something just leaving in front of your eyes, they look indistinguishable. Right. But that's because 16,000 miles per hour is very fast. But it's not speed of light. It's nothing. It's nowhere even close.
Speed of light's what, like 560 million miles an hour or something? I think
187,000 miles per second. I think.
Do the math.
And actually, if those things are manned, that would mean that the Alcubierre warp drive is actually real and it's been applied for a long time. Because technically, if that doesn't work, that bubble, we would turn into just mush, you know. So,
well, this comes back to like, and I can't wait to ask him next Friday when Richard Dolan joins us about the secret space program. The secret space program that he talked about in his book, that Gary McKinnon hinted at when he hacked NASA, that Stephen Greer claims has existed for a long time. There's all these different people who have said in some form or another that this technology has been around and used a lot. Like Mark McCandlish, when he told his story, he was saying like these things looked old when he found them, or when his contact, I guess, saw them in the hangar. They were old and kind of banged up, and they looked like they'd been sort of, I don't know, used a lot, I think is the way he described it. So maybe Xander, you're saying that we have like the 1.0 version of this technology, but they might be sitting on the technology that's 10 generations beyond where we're at. So we can scoot around our solar system maybe, but we can't.
I think
we're a danger to ourselves, but not to others necessarily.
It might not even be moving around the solar system. Really, in terms of like military advantage, there's no point in being able to move around the solar system. They want to be able to, essentially, you want to be able to move to any part of the planet as fast as you can, and hopefully undetected. That's quite a different task to just traveling to Saturn, for example. So maybe we've geared the technology towards military rather than exploration, for example. That, as I said, there's no real, like, the International Space Station orbits the planet once every 90 minutes, and that's just using conventional propulsion. Mm-hmm. If we have, the next level up, maybe we can travel to anywhere on the planet within 30 minutes. That's still an absolute it's a game changer.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the base layer possibilities are of this technology because I've not seen it. My understanding is that if you're going to bend gravity, you're going to need to know what the hell you're doing, because you can do some pretty nasty stuff by bending gravity. Like, you can create black holes, you can really mess with, especially like civilian populations. So where has the military taken this, I think, is a good question. We really used the technology in the way that maximizes its use for human well-being, or have we developed it to maximize its use in military? Because they are two very different things. There are overlaps, but there are two very different paths to take this technology down.
I mean, just practically speaking, if we have something that can go 10 to 15 or 20,000 miles per hour, what happens if we hit a bird? Like, how do we know we're not going to hit something or a piece of hail? Or, I mean, the damage done by that is just, I mean, catastrophic. I can't imagine. So just practically, there's so many questions about if that's even possible or actually been done yet. Unless there's some kind of force field, but then that's like, what? We have force fields?
Well, I think the way it was described, I think if I understand Bob Lazar's description, it was that there's a distortion around the craft. The craft exists in its own local space-time bubble. So, like, you would slip past a bird. You could hit it straight on, but it would just like
a windshield. It's like a windshield.
It would be undamaged because it would just slip. You would slip through the space-time where it is, and it would almost like,
oh my God,
not matter. They would displace that space-time in some way. This may have something to do with, and I've heard it explained this way, that it might have something to do with when we see these craft do transmedium stuff. Sometimes you'll see them go straight into a mountain or straight into the ground,
right,
and just disappear. Maybe that has something to do with it.
Well, that I understand. I'm sorry. That I understand that with, like, if NHI were controlling it, but how would we do that?
What I think it might be just an effect of the technology once it's activated. It's like just the way it works, like lift on a wing. Once you figure out like the design of a wing.
I think Tom DeLonge explained it once, and it does have to do with the Alcubierre warp drive that I told you guys about, because it's supposed to create like a bubble where you go at a certain speed, a normal speed, but everything else outside looks like it's just stopped like that, or it goes really extremely slow.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you were in the craft and looking out the window, it would look like time is frozen and you're just zipping around a bunch of statue.
Which would explain why we see right angle turns. Like, to us, they're making these unbelievably fast right angle turns, but to them it could be just a slow right, but we perceive it completely different.
Yeah, that's how Tom described it. Yeah.
Yep.
I think that makes the most sense.
It's also how Lazar describes it, is how there was a talk between Lazar and David Fravor. They were both on stage, and they described, I think it was Fravor that described the craft that he saw was sort of shimmying back and forth. And Bob said, it may be just a consequence of, space-time distortions, but from inside the craft, you're really not doing that at all. You're kind of just doing things slowly, but because of the way the propulsion works, you're sort of experiencing everything in a very different time frame to everybody else.
That makes the most sense to me. That's why the descriptions that Bob Lazar gives of the inside of the craft are very plain. He's like, there's just a few chairs. There's no seatbelt. There's no harness. There's no there's no handrails. There's nothing to hold on to. You just comfortably sit down in a little molded chair, like something you'd find at like a McDonald's play place, little plastic looking thing. And then you just do your thing. And the ship stays for you relatively, mostly just immobile. I guess you just sit in what appears to be a room for you. And then it just does its thing. But if that technology, I don't even know if we have a global mechanism to deliver technology like that in a way that would benefit people, to the people who actually need it. Like, the only mechanisms we really have that we use for anything are like the traditional corporate capitalist system and the military. Anything else is not even really real. Like, even foreign aid and all the other stuff that we do to help people around the world, it's just a fraction of a percentage of what we actually spend on everything else. So how would you do that? Even if you had the technology and you knew how to use it and you could make it safely and you could duplicate it safely, what could you do to help people?
As someone who flies around the world for a living, it would help me get to Australia in less than 17 hours. And I would really appreciate that. I'd really appreciate that.
That's a long ass time.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and then I wonder too, like, go ahead.
I think the question you just asked is the question they're probably asking themselves. The more I've thought about this and the power associated with this technology, and I have to see what's going on around the world and try and analyze it, and the fact that we just can't seem to stop bombing each other. It's no wonder that private enterprise are saying we can't let this genie out the bottle because we don't know how to contain it. It's sad to hear, because I feel like I'm responsible enough to use that level of technology. But, I'm just one guy. You're all just individuals yourselves, and we're all relatively rational. Yeah. But there's a large swathe of the planet that doesn't align with us philosophically. Certainly governments don't align with us philosophically. Like, how can we be trusted with power this immense?
I think that's
yeah.
Go ahead, Dan.
No, as I said, Xander, I think you nailed it perfectly. And all of us here and your whole community and everybody, we know the right thing to do, and we feel responsible. We should be ready. But the sad truth is, as a civilization, honestly, we are way too far away from being able to handle it. And that's very disappointing, because I want it so badly. I want to see the world get transformed, but we are like maybe hundreds of years, maybe 100 years, I don't know, from being able to handle that kind of responsibility. Like, we're too animalistic, and we're too violent, and we're too territorial, and we don't raise each other up, and we don't really have a sense of global community that we need to harness that.
But do you think that is our natural state, to be in that chaotic sort of conflict state all the time? Is that our natural state when left alone, or is that artificially created to maintain the power structure that we have? In other words, if people were given the chance and they were given the choice, could we all just get along?
That is a huge question. Huge.
I don't think so yet.
I'm sorry. I just want to throw. It's like my wife is Peruvian, so we talk about South American politics a lot. And her dad was a Peruvian military, and so we get into this from time to time. And there's a conversation we have a lot of fun at holidays. Sometimes it's like, why is Latin America so screwed up? Like, why is there so much chaos in South America? And it's like, well, the CIA has been there overthrowing governments and installing people and changing things around and meddling with the politics of that entire area for so long, and so has the KGB and everybody. They're not left alone. There's constantly just being manipulated and tricked into competing over resources that we shouldn't be competing over. And I don't know. I just feel like that's not our natural state. I feel like left alone, given the right support structure, people would be like, okay, yeah, I think we can be peaceful.
You think so? I don't know. I wish. I hope. But we're just like, everybody likes to have something someone else doesn't. We like to have more money than our neighbor. We like to have a fully stocked fridge of food that we might throw away when people are starving on the street.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of us are there. A lot of us have the right mentality, but as a people, we just want more. We want to have more than our neighbor. We're not really like a sharing village type thing yet.
I think in small doses we are, but when it gets to let's call it the tribe, when the tribe grows so big that you don't know the vast majority of the people in the tribe, it starts to change its meaning a little bit. Like, in the UK, I want everybody to thrive and to be able to access the NHS. But the people that take advantage of the NHS, for example, they piss me off. And they're in the same tribe as me, and I would do exactly the same thing as them in their position. But because they're 1, 2, 3, steps away from me, society speaking, like it's no longer a tribe.
Well, it's like everything else in our society, like class consciousness, class warfare, like, keeping people at each other's throats over artificial things that aren't really a big issue. There's a lot of that. And then the fact is that the technology we're talking about ends scarcity. So if you could live in a world without scarcity, then hypothetically, there'd be enough medical care to go around for everybody, and it would be distributed very cheaply, and it would be mostly robotic and AI, and maybe 100 years from now, you're in a situation where there is no starvation and there is no warfare because there's no need for it.
I think at the core of this, there's like a philosophical issue that started way back during the Greeks. It's materialism against idealism, and materialism has been kicking idealism's ass for over 2,000 years. That's, I think, where the problem lies, that the paradigm is still the same. It has been the same for a while. And unless we keep having these conversations and keep trying to get more people involved in the conversation, it's going to continue like that. But I do remain hopeful, because there are a lot of conversations that are happening right now that are way more than they were 10 years ago, just 10 years ago.
Let me change this up a little bit. I want to ask you guys this. As content creators, as podcasters, as personalities in this space, that you spend a lot of time thinking about it, you spend a lot of time looking at it. How do you tackle this subject? Because it starts out so simple. It's like UFOs and flying saucers, but it's so massive and it's so hard to wrap your mind around. How do you break it down and communicate it to your audiences and the people that you talk to?
Pavel?
Okay, well, for me, it has to do with trying to show people how motivated I am of reading material, of watching stuff. And if they see me motivated enough, I would hope that they feel infected by that motivation and they want to do the same things that I'm doing. That's what I try to do, at least.
Yep, right on. I think for me, it's I kind of like I said, I love what you guys do here, and it's just about having conversations where no idea is off limits and just like a comfortable spot to kick around ideas. Because the truth is, we all know this. Anyone who says they know, they don't. So let's ask questions. Let's explore possibilities, and just get comfortable with how insanely weird it is. And it's okay. It's also okay not to have answers. It's fun to talk about. It's important just to become familiar with it, and having people come in and have those kind of conversations comfortably is the most important thing to me. And just getting people on board who want to get their toes in and don't know how to get into it is important. And that's something you guys do great, is just having laid back, sitting around the table conversations, and it's awesome.
I thank you for saying that, because I honestly have no idea what I'm doing, and that's why I'm asking you guys, because I'm hoping that you'll give me some help here. I don't know. I really don't know. I know that when I started this, I had a lot of questions. I didn't have any answers, and I was looking for other people to connect with. And the more that I talk about it, the more that I think about it, the more that I study it, the less I know. And I think I'm feeling that frustration, and I'm picking up on it in the larger UFO community, that there's a undercurrent of when is this going to get somewhere? When does this move on to the next step? We feel like we're just sort of running in place. But I agree with you, Dan. I think it's fun to just sit in it and talk about it and speculate. It's the best gateway drug into all of these other conversations that we probably should be having about a lot of different things.
Yep.
That aren't necessarily UFOs, but UFOs get you there.
Yep.
Yeah.
When someone first asked me a question of well, what's going on? My first response is, what do you think it is? Like, I want to hear what other people think it is or what's going on. But when you say like you feel like it's getting further and further away, I agree. And there's something that's coming up lately a lot is this idea of the term tech bro is thrown around a lot, but those tech guys seizing this and burying it further again and getting a hold of it and using it to make money. And that's my biggest fear. And right now it feels like that is exactly what's happening, at least to me.
What makes you
guys
say
feel?
that?
When you see, and I like the work they do, but people like Matthew Pines and Jesse Michaels and those folks who have connections to those worlds, and you hear that they're getting involved in investing in UFO technology eventually. And when you have that kind of bankroll, it's hard for the common man or society to compete with getting that information before billionaires. And money motivates everything, sadly. And there is so much money to be made if this is figured out, where I worry that once it's in those hands, we go back to another, decades of not knowing, because it's all trademarked and all this kind of shit.
Pavel, you talked to Matt Pines. What do you think?
I like them, by the way. I'm not shitting on them. I like those guys,
Yeah.
But I think you make a great point, Dan. I'm curious where you're at, Pavel. What do you think?
I'm also worried, to say the least. I guess it just depends, because if there is one way in which we can actually get at least 50 or 60% of the information out, we've tried through legal means, we've tried through other means. The people in power right now have been managed by a technocracy for at least 20 years. And the real people in power are those tech bros. Let's not fool ourselves.
Yeah.
At least here in the westernized world. So if they're going to do that, because we really don't have the power to stop them, we've never had it, really. They control our lives through social media. I mean, we are all like kind of slaves to all of this.
That's so fucked up, and no one talks about that.
Yeah,
No one really talks about it.
And if they really want to get involved in this, and they just caught wind of something that is going on, all I ask is for them to be transparent and tell us what they're doing. That's it. I'm not saying don't do it. I can't really stop them. None of us can.
No.
But we can ask them to be honest and to like really show their hand. And there are tech bros who do that, and there are tech bros who don't do that. I'm worried about the ones who don't.
My thing with the tech bros is that when you become that wealthy, and this is, people give me a hard time because I talk about like class politics on this channel from time to time. But when you reach that level, once you get to the 1% or the 1% of the 1%, effectively, you live in a different reality than everyone else. You live in a post-scarcity world. Nothing is out of reach for you. You have no consequences. The consequences of your actions are minimal. It's very hard to fuck up. It's very hard to fail. Anything you do is going to just succeed because there's enough inertia around that wealth to pull people into your orbit. And you see this with a guy like Elon. You see it with a guy like Bezos, and you see it with the current crop of like tech billionaires that do run the world through their algorithms. Elon can personally adjust and tune Twitter, X, if you want to call it that, or Grok. He can make adjustments. But one man, millions of people are being programmed by these algorithms, like tens of millions. We're all being trained by them. And eventually, my fear is that over time, we'll be corralled in a sense. We'll never know what's happening. It'll be very subtle. It'll happen very slowly over a period of years, but we'll be corralled sort of just like social media did into these different sort of groups. We'll be corralled into sort of a mental prison where your thoughts and ideas are managed and mediated by some AI that's omnipresent, completely invisible to you, that just knows you from birth. It knows everything about you. And so you'll be in a world of curated information that you'll never be able to penetrate and see out of. And from there, those billionaires will have access to basically whatever they want. There'd be no one left to stop them at that point. And I think the idea of this a constant and endless accumulation of power seems like the natural endpoint of that would be to Dan's point, these guys sitting around watching YouTube just like us, whoever these billionaires are, the ones that we know, and then probably a bunch more that we don't know. And they're going, well, shit, I got money. I got money to burn. I'll go, let's go recover some UFO technology. They hire some dudes, they set up the program, and then they go after it. And I wonder if you're Elon Musk and you own SpaceX and you know that other billionaires are horning in on your action, maybe, and might be trying to get their hands on some UFO technology, would you use your position at Doge to kick open the doors and steal the data of all your competition and figure out who's got what?
Yes.
You think so?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, right?
Sure. It's warfare. I mean, in a smaller way, you know, there's no rules in war.
And the whole time Elon's like, I haven't seen anything. There's nothing to see here. Don't worry about it.
Bullshit. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
He probably signed a lot of NDAs too, though, because he has contracts with a lot of countries, government countries. And I mean, if you ask me what he's doing, it's scary because he has the biggest rocket company in the world. He has the biggest satellite company in the world. He has the biggest electric car company in the world. And he's trying to put chips in our brains.
And he owns Grok.
Isn't that
the
fucking
most powerful
scary,
AI
dude?
cluster? What's he going to do? Can you imagine, by the way, this is like Total Recall. Remember the real Total Recall, the one with Schwarzenegger?
The only one, in my opinion.
The only one.
Yeah.
Do you want a Cohagen? Because this is how you get a Cohagen. You're going to have Elon running Mars. It's going to suck. Can you imagine living there? And then everyone's got to have the chip in their head. Everyone has to have a Neuralink, and it's all got to be hooked up to Elon's AI.
If you want the air, you got to have the chip.
Yeah. Do you like to breathe?
Yeah.
No, just don't worry. We'll put the Severance chip in your head. By the way, and that's the other thing too. It's like the zeitgeist is so fucking negative right now. I know I'm all over the place, but I was watching Severance last night. My wife and I were sitting there watching it, and we're like, God, science fiction is so goddamn depressing now. Everything is such a fucking drag. And I don't know if it's a cultural moment that we're just living through, because it's like the politics suck, the fucking news sucks. UFO situation seems like it's being taken over by a bunch of billionaire tech bros. The last fucking people on earth that should be in charge of it are the military and tech bros from Silicon Valley. And those are the only two people who are going to get their hands on this, two groups. And then you just go to escape all that, and you sit down and watch some, I don't know, some shows on TV, and everything is about like a fucked up reality where no one knows what's real. No one knows who they are. It's an existential nightmare. It just sucks all the dopamine out of your brain and leaves it like, it's like a squished up little prune. The next day I wake up, it's like disgusting, but real.
I think it's important for people to know, though. I mean, yeah, I know. I do think that people, I think we do have an ability to contact whatever this is on our own. I know from experience that it's possible and it can be done. So that's one thing that at the moment can't be kept from people.
Yeah.
If you try and you want to experience something, I do believe that you can. And at the moment, that can't be taken away. So I encourage people to try to do that.
Clint did it, and it worked. It was really weird.
I haven't duplicated it, so we don't know if it's real, but I did it one time. I think I did it. I don't know.
Same.
I got to test it.
Yeah. It's doable. Try it.
I think we're talking about a lot of different things, and somehow the UFO community is like, it's all lumped inside this community, but like lights in the sky may or may not be the same thing as physical craft. The meditation aspect may be tapping into a parallel reality that is just as fascinating and bizarre, but also not the source of the UFOs that we see when we see a disc. Like, it could be two different things happening too. And that's the thing that's so frustrating, is like, those are the questions that I want answers to, but I feel like we don't get those answers. Every answer we get muddies the water even more. And it's like, even your own personal experience, well, I guess your own personal contact experiences, if you have any to fall back on, that's pretty much it. That's what you got. But what we're all sort of hungry for is that outside event, that the objective reality really does change for everybody at the same time. Right?
Completely.
Yeah.
Yep.
I hope so.
Another mass sighting would be beautiful, wouldn't it?
Another Phoenix Likes event.
Yep.
Something like that.
Well, I think we got primed for, COVID felt like, in retrospect, looking at it from where we're at now, especially in this space, looking back at COVID was like a dry run of an event that puts the whole world on pause. Like everybody stops what they're doing. Everybody stops going to work. Everybody sits at home and watches the TV, and we don't have that anymore in our world. 20, 30 years ago, we would all watch the same TV shows on the same day. You'd watch X-Files on Thursday night. On Friday, you'd come into work. You would talk about the X-Files. Everybody would have the same conversations. We generally had a tempo, and there was like a pace of news and information flow that more or less was the same for everybody. And we've gone so far away from that now. It's this completely unpredictable, seemingly random information drops that sometimes make sense, sometimes conflict with everything else you've heard. It's just, I don't know, man. It feels like a mess sometimes, and it's, that's why I wanted to start doing these roundtables, because I feel like I'm out of ideas here. I don't know what else to say.
Every person on Earth right now gets to choose their own adventure as far as news they take in, shows they watch, YouTube thing, music. There used to be like, here's the news, here it is. Here's the movies that are out in the theater. Here's what you get. But now we can do whatever we want every second of every day. And it's great, but it's also weird. I like it, but it's weird.
Super weird.
Yep.
Where does it go next, guys? What do you think is good? We didn't even make it through all of the events this year that have happened up till now, but where are we going with the rest of 2025? What's in store?
It's 2 days away, the next thing.
What's
2
that?
days
What we
away
got?
is the
So
documentary?
we're talking about the documentary, right?
That's next Sunday. And
Do you want to watch the trailer quickly, and then we'll just have a quick 5 minutes?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Just give me a second. All right. So this is being shown at South by Southwest on Sunday, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. And we've had a couple of comments. The filmmaker, Dan Farah, has got a quote from Chuck Schumer as well, which I really want to share afterwards, but we'll watch the trailer first. Here we go.
The American people are ready to receive the truth.
Humanity is not the only intelligence in the universe.
Humanity is not the only intelligent species.
We are absolutely not alone.
Non-human intelligence exists.
UAPs are real, they're here, and they're not human. I spent 25 years as a senior official with the CIA.
I worked on highly classified UAP programs.
28 years as an astrophysicist.
I served as the 4th Director of National Intelligence.
Director of Aviation Security in the National Security Council.
A one-star admiral after 32 years of service.
People that come forward with this, I feel like they've taken their life in their own hands.
I was recruited to a highly sensitive government program that investigated unidentified aerial phenomenon.
For over 16 years, on behalf of the U.S. government, I worked as a senior intelligence official on the unidentified aerial phenomenon topic.
We learned that the U.S. government was involved in a long-running secret war with other nations to collect and reverse engineer vehicles not made by humans.
I have seen with my own eyes non-human craft and non-human beings.
So look at that thing. It's rotating. There's a whole fleet of them.
The first country that cracks the code on this technology will be the leader for years to come.
China has established its own version of a UAP task force.
You think for a second that they wouldn't consider using it to achieve their ends of domination?
This is similar to the Manhattan Project. This is the atomic weapon on steroids.
This is so secret. Very, very few people in our entire government have been allowed access to it.
Even presidents have been operating on a need-to-know basis, but that begins to ramp out of control.
It's not acceptable to have secret parts of government that no one ever sees.
You better be careful about a government that doesn't trust its people, because there's no telling what they'll pull on you.
This is the biggest discovery in human history.
You had information being locked away that could change the trajectory for species.
It has so many beneficial impacts, including clean energy.
We should have disclosure today. We should have disclosure tomorrow. The time has come.
What else you want to know?
Give it to me.
So I'm just so you guys know, I'm trying. I don't know. I don't know if I'll be able to make it happen, but I'm trying to get someone who appears in the movie that is not in the trailer on the show right after they can talk. And please send a positive vibe so I can make it happen.
Positive vibes coming your way. What do you guys think of that trailer? What do you make of it?
I just want to start by saying I could listen to Eric Davis and Hal Puthoff talk for 30 hours straight. I love those dudes. I'm excited by it. I mean, there's a couple new Clapper is the new guy in there finally being. Well, we've heard about it for a long time, but I hope Pavel's right that there's some kind of like secret, or they're holding something back to be talked about come Sunday. But I'm excited.
I mean, they how do I put this? What they showed here, I think it was already quite a bit. I mean, Jay Stratton saying that's pretty big. And in movies, that's how they follow the protocol. When you show a trailer, you show something, but you don't imagine what they're going to show in the actual movie. That's how Hollywood operates. Mm-hmm. So if they show Jay saying this, and it's just like, I counted like 11, 12 people. It's 34 people.
Yeah, they're not leading with their best stuff. They're just trying to wet your whistle a little bit.
Yep. That's what's happening.
I want to ask you guys, do you think Stratton is referring to seeing craft in the sky and seeing beings on Skinwalker, or do you think he has seen recovered craft and dead bodies? What do you guys think?
I don't want to hear shit from anybody unless they've seen a body. You know what I mean? Like, that's where I'm at right now. I'm so frustrated. Don't come at me with anything other than I've been inside a craft and I've seen bodies.
Hell yeah.
That's where I'm at.
Sander?
Yeah, I'm in the same place. Stratton has really set himself up here. Well, probably not fair to blame Stratton. Dan Farrar has set up that trailer to really... I'll be honest, it feels kind of similar to the hype before the News Nation interview with Barber surrounding the UAP transportation video, where in that interview itself, which the interview's fantastic, the video actually plays a small part of the actual information that we learned. And I am slightly worried that this may be a similar case where Stratton... We don't know if he's talking about seeing photographs at the end of the day. He's saying he's seen it with his own eyes, but I can look at a photograph with my own eyes.
They're always parsing their words that way too. It's like, and Lou's the worst at it. Lou is like notorious. That's why at the end it's so funny when what else do you want to know? Well, fuck Lou, we've been asking you for 5 years. What do you mean? What else do we want to? Don't be cute.
And
technically, I've seen Heidi Klum naked with my own eyes. That doesn't mean that it was right in front of me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
You have to wonder. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a documentary. I don't know. I believe they're still looking for a distributor. I don't know, but if this is paywalled information, you have to wonder. Okay, then it's definitely not information that's going to change the world, because as soon as it gets released, it would change the world, and the paywall would become irrelevant, because in the trailer itself, they talk about free energy, and that would completely upend the entire capitalistic system that we live in. So there are certainly some red flags, and I have no problem with people taking creative liberty and making documentaries. I think all the documentary on the Varginha crash and stuff was phenomenal, and there's nothing wrong with the person that made that making money off the documentary.
Agreed.
Although James Fox was screwed with that one, but yeah, I see what you mean.
Yep. Still one of the best films. One of the best films on the topic ever made.
Phenomenal.
I don't have a problem with people making money, because I think, for one, I think that the general public has a weird idea of who actually is making money and how much those people are making. I think there's some people who make a lot of money. Stephen Greer is definitely one of those people. And there are some people who just, are doing it because it's a passion project. I think James Fox would do it for free. I don't think he would be doing it if he didn't really care. But I do get the sense that the moment we're in right now, what we're seeing is a few things happening. There is an effort underway. This is just my assessment. The effort is underway right now to begin rolling technologies out of black budget programs into civilian research programs. But how do you make that transfer, and who gets that technology first? That's a conversation that's going on right now. How do you take it out of a black budget thing at Northrop Grumman and turn it over to a Silicon Valley company that can make rapid progress? My guess is, if there is a Cold War around the reverse engineering of alien technology, and China has the head start, or they're ahead of us for some reason, they've had a breakthrough, it's possible that on this side of things, they've determined that the best way to make rapid progress is to roll out this technology and let more people look at it. So then you have to go, okay, well, who are the companies that could we give this to software companies or computer companies? Are there other people who have the expertise that could maybe make a quantum leap in understanding that if they just had their access to it? So that discussion is probably going on in some form or another. And what we're seeing vis-a-vis Matthew Pines and Jake Barber and others who are coming forward, it's probably, I don't know this, but it's probably some kind of a soft psychological campaign to soften people up to the idea of this stuff is real, it does exist, some people are going to get their hands on it, and that's going to be okay, and we should just kind of help this process along. But it's a PR thing. It feels like a PR thing to me.
I do have a hard time believing that every single person involved in this and in the overall effort would just like willingly go like, yeah, we're gonna just deceive everyone and just like risk their families. I don't think they are not doing this for the benefit also of their families. They must be, because they all have kids, they all have grandchildren, and they don't want for this to go to shit. Excuse the language. And whoever comes out and says like, this is a psyop, everybody's trying to deceive you, how does that make sense? I don't see it making sense, really. I do see that there is PR involved. Yeah, this is organized, obviously. It's been planned for a long time. But I don't think, for example, Commander Fravor would lend himself to do something like this. I respect the shit out of that guy.
Oh, I don't think Fravor's like purposely part of a psyop. I'm not suggesting that. I'm saying that a portion of what you're seeing is a managed media campaign to present this in a particular way, to frame the conversation. But this is probably a 10, 15 year long process that we're just in the very early stages of. So they're trying to like create that Overton window and manage the terms of the discussion so that going forward, when we get to that part of the conversation, everybody's kind of primed for it. That's my guess. But I think it started with with real whistleblowers bringing forward real information, and that information got everybody excited. And then a bunch of billionaire tech bros were like, "Well, shit, let's get in on this. This is great." Like, but now the conversation is, well, the technology is like the ultimate. You win the game so much that capitalism breaks. You can't have a system like in a world where you have free energy, unlimited intelligence, which is more or less free, and you've got advanced robotics. You know, that's kind of it. Like, do you need Walmart in that world? Is there a better way to run things? Who's the loser in that? You know, how do you decide who the winners are? How do you decide who the losers are? Yeah, you could have the technology to go from LA to Australia in less than 17 hours, but do you put all the airlines out of business when you roll that technology out? Or do you let some people have it? Or, you know, like how do you ramp up an entire planetary civilization from here to like the next 500 years of progress? And how do you do that in one generation?
Maybe it's not one generation, you know.
Maybe
I'm sorry, Xander, go ahead.
No, Dan, you go.
When you think about how we went, the progress we've made in 100 years in the world is unbelievable when you really look at it. Going from, electricity to flying planes to having telephones, then going into Wi-Fi, and now we have like artificial intelligence. That all happened in a very small period of time. So the transition could happen quicker than we think, but it's just going to take a lot of work. It's not my job to figure it out, but I'm very curious how it happens.
So I don't think that there are any media campaigns going on whatsoever. I don't think there is a, quote, controlled disclosure going on. I think what we're seeing is the dam breaking more than anything else. And the only thing that they can possibly do is decide what's more important to keep secret. For the time being, psionics is so crazy that it could just be thrown out there with all of the other stuff, and we'll be occupied with that for a couple of years. Like, fine. The thing that they are protecting, and it's the reason we've not seen it, is the nuts and bolts, because that equals physical change. Like, we can all start loving the skies and calling to UAPs and stuff, but at the end of the day, the technology associated with it, which is what these companies have invested in, that's what's being kept secret. And I have no reason to believe that there is any intention to release that anytime soon. And I think it is just a case of, okay, there's a leak there. Is it worth our time and money to try and contain that? Yes, no, maybe. And I don't think there's any sort of media campaigns. I don't think there is any planted stories. I don't think it's that organized enough. I think they really are just trying to hold back the water. And
it's kind of a shit show, though, actually.
Yeah, complete shit
kind
show.
of.
And it almost works in their favor because there's so much information to absorb.
It's so confusing.
Yeah, they can let bits slip here and there. They let Bob slip 30 years ago, and we're still talking about, is that guy legit or not? Like,
I think you're 100% right. I'm 100% with you on the conversation. I think it is being managed, but the reason I think that is because we have steered away from nuts and bolts. Getting our hands on I think that's the purpose of manipulating the conversation, is to get us away from going into Boeing, going into Lockheed, going into Northrop Grumman and getting the shit.
I think the last big point to probably make on this is Jake Barber is very touchy around the subject of the tough books. And that is another nuts and bolts aspect to his story that we don't know really anything about. We know about the loving feeling he received, and I'm not knocking him for this because it's still just as valid. The loving feeling he received from the 8-gun when he approached it in the helicopter, we heard all about that. But as soon as it gets to the story about the tough books, the Panasonic tough books that allegedly that he was told he needed to go and retrieve, we can't know anything about that, and that's because that's a physical thing that exists. That's a laptop that contains information. Greer has said it's literally like information related to all of these programs. That story too. That story too is also very mission sensitive to like a military operation, which you would think would have to stay pretty quiet.
Yeah. Yeah,
I can't help but think that perhaps the Immaculate Constellation whistleblower may have had access to one of these Panasonic things. I don't know. It's something that I thought of the first time I heard about it. I was like, could this be tied? Maybe. I don't know.
We'll have to save it for next time. I gotta wrap it up here. But this was a great conversation, guys. This was awesome. Thanks for coming out and participating in our first roundtable.
My feeling is they need to be 3 hours long. They need to be 3 hours long.
We're going to have to start earlier. I think it might throw Patrick for a loop, but if we'll start an hour earlier, and we'll make it work. Don't forget, everybody, if you're watching, thanks for watching, by the way. Thanks for participating in the chat. Thanks for being a part of Team Night Shift. It's great to have you all here every week when we sit down and have these conversations. Don't forget, next Friday, Richard Dolan will be joining us. You're going to be hearing more about that this week. We're going to be promoting it, and we're also going to be asking you guys to submit questions for Richard. He's got a very limited amount of time that we are going to have him for, so we've got to be organized, and we're going to be looking to you for some good questions that we can pass along to Richard. So please start thinking, get your pencils and papers out, and start jotting down some notes, and We'll throw up a poll or something on the YouTube page. You can also do this in the Discord. We'll figure it out. And with that out of the way, we'll see you next week. We've got some more videos coming, a few interviews that are going to be dropping in the next few days. Keep an eye out for those. And until then, keep looking up. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next week.